Hey everybody, welcome back to our Peace of Mind. Today we're going to be reviewing The Last of Us 2. I'm going to dive into it a little bit deeper and I'm going to be giving you guys my peace of mind on the game. My name is Omar, aka Venomore1 on PSN and Xbox Live. Let me get started and let me review this game for you guys. The Last of Us 2. Is it better than The Last of Us 1? No, it's not. But it's still a great game. And it has a lot of implications from part 1. So if you haven't played part 1, I suggest that you play part 1. It sets up mostly everything in this game. It's a really well developed game by Naughty Dogg. To start off, let's talk about the concept and the gameplay. There's a lot of new things in this game. They brought everything back from the first game, but they added a lot of new things. For example, you could actually go prone. Before in the game, you wouldn't be able to go prone. Now you could actually lay down on your tummy, which makes for better shots. You could also jump now, which was ridiculous that you couldn't do in the first one. Another addition is Ellie gets a blade now. You're not confined to crafting shivs anymore. You play as another character named Abby. When you play as Abby, you still have to craft shivs. With Ellie, I really like the the addition of having a blade on hand for most of the game. You get to kill clickers and you could do stealth kills quickly, and it's a great addition because it's fun. They have various different kind of new enemies. But one of the new enemies are dogs, and unlike the humans, they could actually track your scent and they get a hold of you. The only negative part about that is that as Ellie, you have to kill these dogs, and she's really vicious when she kills these dogs. That's one of the least favorite parts in this game. Many people have commented on that. She doesn't just put them to sleep, she pretty much murders them. And it's sad because the dogs really don't have no fault. Another thing that they added is they added a skill tree so that you could unlock by finding magazines throughout the world. You could customize Ellie to a certain degree by your playstyle. If you're more of a stealth player, then you could add more points to stealth, like being able to have listen mode enhanced or different things that you could do to cater to your playstyle. Although I'm pretty sure you could unlock all the skills. The game only gives you a certain amount of skill points that you could use. So I would say choose wisely because I don't think you could unlock everything in one playthrough. Another thing that they added, the workbenches. Now you could actually stop at a workbench and you could upgrade your weapons with the same kind of concept as the level up trees. If you prefer damage over accuracy, then you could do damage. If you want precision over damage, you could do that as well. It's really cool. Not only do they look better, Ellie literally, or Abby, they both go to the workbench and start working on the gun, things that you could upgrade on the weapon to make it perform better. Combat has improved greatly in The Last of Us 2. In this one, you could actually dodge. The fights seem more fluid. It's kind of like a counter system. You dodge and then you counter. And it's really well implemented because it makes you feel like you're in a fluid fight. It's a really good experience, especially with Abby. She's a brawler. So whenever you get a hold of Ellie and you're in a fist fight, it's really fun because she's built like an ox and she hits like a Mack truck. It's a really good experience either with Ellie or Abby. Ellie's a bit more agile and she could dodge better and she has quicker attacks. Weapons, as I mentioned earlier, not only can you customize the weapons, but they have a different variety of weapons. The handguns, they have a hunter rifle, they have a shotgun, a flamethrower. They have a bow, which is my favorite. Ellie gets one type of bow and Abby gets another kind of bow. I actually prefer Abby's, but Ellie's is just as good. There's some that are underutilized. You have your option of choosing your weapons. There's not that much that I could say I didn't like about the gameplay. If anything, kind of nitpicking is the bottles and the bricks. In the first game, they had bottles and bricks all throughout the game. Most games use some sort of distraction. You throw a brick, they look, and then you sneak up and kill an enemy from behind. Or you break a bottle and it catches their attention, and then while they're investigating, you could go another way, or you could make a run for it. But the only thing that I think is a little bit absurd is that they use bottles and bricks way too much. Either everybody's an alcoholic or everybody's building houses all the time because there's too many bricks and bottles in places that there shouldn't be. But I mean, it's part of the mechanic of the game that helps you. But at the same time, I wish they would have had a bit more options when it comes to that. Like maybe you could use rocks, coins, bricks, something, sound bombs, which I think they had in the first game, but I don't remember if they have them in this game. Another thing is that, I don't know if it's just me, but at some point of the game, it feels like the areas are a bit too empty. There was parts of the game where I would be walking for a couple of minutes without no enemies, collectibles, nothing of interest. I don't remember the first one being like that. I remember the first one being engaging almost every single step of the way. And in The Last of Us 2, I found myself at times thinking, hey, there's nothing going on. What's going on? Am I doing something wrong? Or is there really not that many enemies in this area? And I mean, it's not something that's game breaking, but at the same time, I could see some people getting annoyed of that or maybe getting tired of it. Overall, the gameplay is fun, fluid, and I love it. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Okay, now we're going to be moving on to the graphics and the performance of the game. Graphics in this game are phenomenal. They're stunning. They're top-notch. They're almost next-gen console type of graphics. From the character designs to the environment, to the vibrant colors, to the creepy atmosphere when there's infected around. The details on the characters are impressive. The details on the enemies are impressive. Whenever a character is either wet or has mud on them, it shows that on the character. Another thing is the facial animations. Most of the time when they're either arguing, they'll either have like a mad look, or if they're concerned, they'll show that in their face. If they're nervous, they'll do an action. Even when Ellie's playing a guitar, she's tapping her feet and grooving to the jam. You could feel the emotions in these characters, which is something really amazing. The world, even though it's a post-apocalyptic world of a zombie apocalypse, it feels real. Sometimes a little bit too real. Too many things going on in the world that they're pretty to look at, but they didn't bring any entertainment at some parts of the game. On the performance side, I didn't notice that many load screens. I know there is a few, but the load screens are minimal. I'm pretty sure it's doing some loading when you're going from day to day. It'll say Seattle day 1, then you finish the day, and then it'll say Seattle day 2, and it takes you to the next day. There's a brief pause in between those transitions. Also, the blend between cinematics and actual gameplay is non-existent. You go from a cinematic to playing the game within seconds. It's the type of game that you're glad has a photo mode. You're going to be capturing beautiful, breathtaking pictures. I played on a PS4 Slim, but I could imagine that on a PS4 Pro, it would have another layer of details that I missed out on. Alright, next up is the sound. The sound of this game is phenomenal as well. It has a great creepy soundtrack throughout most of the game, especially when there's infected around. When you're fighting enemies, the soundtrack varies as well. You know, it adapts to human enemies, has different type of atmosphere, different type of soundtrack behind it. Overall, the soundtrack is great. The voice acting is also great. Everybody does a really good job, from Ellie to Abby to all the other characters, even the zombies. The zombie scenes are amplified by this creepy ambience. You get so into the game. Another really cool thing about the human enemies is they talk to each other. Most of them carry conversations between each other. When one of them goes down, they call each other out by name. When someone goes missing, they start asking about them. There's been a couple of times where I would stealth kill an enemy just to know that somebody else was talking to them at the moment, and they'll notice that. And they'll look for that person, or they'll go see what happened. The way that they talk amongst each other is pretty cool. Also, the Seraphites, which I believe they're also known as the Scars, they also speak to each other with whistles. And it's really interesting because they have different ways of alerting each other by simply whistling. They have certain whistles that are high-pitched, kind of like an emergency. They have another ones that are a bit more subtle. They have different actions for their whistles. I mean, I haven't deciphered all of them exactly what they mean, but you kind of get the hint. If it's like a urgent, high-pitched whistle, you know that they're calling for backup and you got to move to another area. That all has to do with the sound design and how well it works in the game. The weapons are just as impressive. They sound like their actual counterparts. The bow, the shotgun, the handguns, and the rifles, they all have weight to them, and they all have that authentic feeling. I was really impressed with what they did with the weapons. Not only how they revamped how they looked and how you could upgrade them, but also their sound. It's really good. Another thing that they chose to do with the sound, and I'm not sure if they did this in part 1. In part 2, there's actual sound cues to certain actions. So if you're crawling around the environment and you're trying to be stealthily, and there's enemies that could possibly spot you, if you're in their line of sight, there's actually a audio cue that you could hear that they might be able to see you, so that way you can move. Even if they're not in your line of sight, you could hear that cue, and then you know that you have to move. It's a really interesting and really helpful tool that they put in there. Also, whenever you pick up items and you're ready to craft something new and you've acquired all the items, you'll hear a little cue and you'll see it on the screen letting you know that you could go into your menu to either craft an item, to upgrade something. Most of us wouldn't know right away to go in and craft something new. Another satisfying aspect of the sound is the environment itself. You could break glass and it sounds genuine. If you walk on glass, you make more noise. Depending on what area you're walking around on, it makes a different type of sound. Audio is really important in this game, obviously, because you're trying to sneak around zombies, you're trying to sneak around enemies. They put emphasis on all the noises you make. If you make a loud noise, is going to attract attention. Even though in some parts of the game, you would do something that was super loud and nobody would show up. When it matters, the noise counts. If you make too much noise, you're going to get swarmed by zombies, or you're going to give away your location to your enemies. Now we're going to be talking about the playability and the replayability of The Last of Us 2. This game has a high playability factor because it's fun, it's immersive, and you get a whole experience out of the journey that Ellie and Abby come across in these characters' lives, draw you into their story. Now, if you really want to go back and dive into The Last of Us 2, there's plenty to do. There's a lot of collectibles. If you want to upgrade Ellie, you go back and do that through the chapters and the encounters, or you could start a new game plus. Once you finish the game, you have the option to start a new game plus, which you start off the game with everything you've already unlocked. Even though they do bump up difficulty a little bit, like normal becomes moderate plus, and then hard plus. If you want to go back and challenge yourself, which I think I would, because through my playthrough, I didn't really struggle much. I did die a few times, but it was never challenging to the point where I was struggling. I saved most of my ammo, weapons. I didn't really use most of them like I would have liked to. I would like to play it again. This time I would use my ammunition a bit more and use various different weapons to see how they work and just to maximize my fun when it comes to it. This game is not necessarily open world. This game is your classical linear game. There's only one outcome to the end of the story, and some of the actions that you take you cannot change. You're limited by the story. Even with that being said, the game is still really well made and it's really engaging, so you're not going to lose anything by not being able to have your own choice. I myself, I'm already on my second playthrough and I'm trying to get all the collectibles, and I find myself intrigued by the story still. The story itself has a deeper message. How do you react to things that happen to you in your life? A topic for lots of discussions and for a lot of opinions. It also has a lot of likable characters that you'll want to see in the future. Ellie has always been one of those characters that's really interesting that you'd want to spend a lot more time with. The newcomers as well, like Abby, she's interesting, especially once you finish the game. She's a bit more fleshed out. You also get introduced to another character that she's partnered up with, and now you're just wondering what's going to happen to him in the future, as they had an interesting backstory as well and a real struggle that they were going through. You're invested by the end of this game into these characters, and you would want to see what happened to them. So that's why I took my time when I was playing to play as much as I could with those characters to see what else they had to offer. At the end of the game, there is satisfaction. It doesn't give you all the answers, but it does give you plenty of them, and it leaves some open for interpretation. You walk away from this game, at least I did, feeling satisfied. So in conclusion, The Last of Us is a great game that a lot of people are going to love and some are going to hate. It's still a game that you should try out for yourself. It's a hell of a ride, and I suggest that you try it and then you give your own opinion. In my opinion, this game is almost as good as the first one, but just a bit shy. The first one is a masterpiece. I played it several times on the PS3 when it came out, and then I played the remastered version, and I enjoyed the remastered version a bit more than the original version on the PS3 because, of course, it had better graphics, it was more fluid, it had power behind it, and it was an enjoyable experience both times. With The Last of Us 2, I could already see signs of maybe wear. By that I mean, the only reason I'm replaying it again is not necessarily for the story mode, it's for the collectibles, as opposed to on the first one, I replayed it because I like the story so much. I want to relive that story. With the second one, I'm just pretty much doing it for the collectibles. So, even though it's a really good game, it's not a masterpiece. A lot of people might disagree. I've heard a lot of raving reviews that have called it a masterpiece. The story, either you're going to be on board with their journeys, or you're going to be dismissive and you're not going to care much, especially early on in the game. If you stick through the beginning of the game, it does get more involved. It gives you more perspective into the characters, and I think you would enjoy it. The game as a whole, I would say play the game and you'll enjoy it. The Last of Us 2 definitely is worth the price of admission, worth every penny, from the simple fact of how much they put into it, from the graphics, the sound, story. This game took a long time to get made, and it shows because they actually poured their heart and soul into this game. It's really, really well made game. Naughty Dogg has outdone themselves, and I applaud them. To put it into perspective, The Last of Us 2 is up there with some of my favorite games in this PS4 console generation, from Horizon Zero Dawn to Spider-Man PS4 to even God of War. This game is up there. It's definitely one of the few that you have to try, just even for the graphics alone, especially if you're playing on a PS4 Pro. You should try it out because it's stunning. In conclusion, I would say it's a great game. Try it, be the judge for yourself. I don't think you're gonna be disappointed. You might be upset at some of the choices it makes, but it's nothing that it's game breaking. Try it out, and if you like it, great. If you don't, then you could always sell the game, right? With that being said, I just want to say thank you once again for tuning into my video, to watching. I hope that you hit that like button. I hope that you hit the subscribe button. I like doing this. I appreciate to all of you guys that like and watch these videos. That has been my peace of mind on The Last of Us 2, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Just take care, be safe, and have a good day. I'm out.